Adam, it's midweek of Baylor week for the Buffaloes as they start Big 12 play, and good interview day today. We got Coach Flea to talk about the running backs, and also heard from Carter Stoutmeyer and LeJontay Wester. Different varieties in what we heard today, but lots of good stuff. What did you think today?
Yeah, you got to start with Coach Flea in that running backs group. I would imagine that's a little bit livelier of a room this week. Just anytime you have a little success, I think it just makes this process more fun. He gave an update on Dallin Hayden and said he's making progress, but it is a high ankle sprain, and so those can linger, or some guys just get over them. They're really tough to predict. It's one of those injuries that the range in terms of when a guy gets back to being 100% is pretty wide. So the great thing is that you've got a couple other guys that have emerged, and he did mention that they have a rule. If you fumble the ball, you're coming out of the game, and so we saw that with Isaiah Augustive on Saturday, and I don't have an issue with that. I mean, you got to give these guys every sense of motivation to protect the football. Baylor, that could have been a scary game against Air Force last week because they fumbled the ball 3 times in that first half, and if the Falcons were a better football team, they might have taken advantage of that. So it is such a key, and that's something that Levante Bentley said that's the focus of them defensively, is winning the turnover margin. So clearly an emphasis around here, and I want to see more Isaiah Augustive. I'm a big fan of his running style.
Yeah, I am too. And Coach Flea also mentioned that Isaiah's handled it well. He's been mature about that. That he didn't hang his head and things like that. And so as far as Dallin Hayden goes, I mean, you're right in that you would rather have Dallin healthy, but I think last week gave people a lot of confidence that, okay, Micah Welch and Isaiah Augustive can handle this, and Charlie Offerall had a couple nice runs as well. So I think for me, I still feel good about the running back group, even without Dallin, but you'd rather have Dallin there.
Yeah, and Coach Prime said that it really wasn't on necessarily the backs the first couple of weeks when they weren't successful running the football. So, and part of that, I think, is some of the scheme stuff. They've switched up a little bit to be a little bit more conducive, running the football out of pistol instead of shotgun, and doing a little tweaks that I think all that stuff together has just helped that group. But, I mean, it's still last in the conference in terms of rushing offense, so they still have a lot of room for improvement in that area. And
it may not be on the backs, but I love the running style of Micah Welch and Isaiah Augustive, so I think that helps too. Carter Stoutmeyer, interesting story, or a cool story really, because comes here as a corner. He played a little bit last year, gets hurt, misses most of this offseason, and was back at corner a little bit, but now at safety. He's just a kind of a Swiss Army knife DB right now, and has really stepped in and played well for Shiloh the last couple of weeks.
I'm surprised he wasn't a blue chip recruit coming out of high school, because he has the pedigree and he had the size. He came in really looking the part, especially as a corner, as a true freshman, and was able to be a pretty physical player in year one at this level. That Jaden Milner-Jones was the same thing. Obviously, he's since transferred to SMU, but Carter has made that step despite missing most of the offseason due to that shoulder surgery. And he talked about kind of his work ethic in that phase, and it's shown that he did everything he could in that whole process, even though he wasn't able to practice in the spring. And when he got the green light, it was pretty much he was ready to go. He was playing corner in that open practice that was down there in Denver, and had a beautiful pass breakup on Will Shepard in the end zone. So he can, if they ever need him to play corner again, right now they certainly don't, because they have so much talent at that position. He could do it. He could play nickelback. He's a future NFL defensive back.
Yeah, and I said this last week, and I'll just say it again, but this is no knock on Shiloh Sanders. It's more of a compliment to Carter. But I think he's come in the last couple of weeks, and you haven't really noticed a drop-off at all, in my opinion. I think he's played extremely well for Shiloh. You'd rather have Shiloh in there, but I love the way Carter's played.
Well, it's helped also that the linebackers are playing so well, right? Because that's when Shiloh was showing up a lot last year. He was the last line of defense, and you didn't want Shiloh leading the team in tackles, not because he's not a talented player, because those are tackles downfield, and that's not good.
You never like your safety leading the team in tackles.
So the fact that Carter Stoutmeyer has flashed at times when he's needed to make a play, but has been kind of quiet because they're not attacking him, yeah, that's what you want to see out of that position.
Yeah. Well, Jonte Wester comes here from FAU this year, and I asked him a question that he basically caught almost 10 balls a game last year at FAU. He comes here, he doesn't know week to week, is this my day or not? Now, he's caught, I think, at least 4 passes or so every game, but it's not 10. It's a much different role. He said he knew that he was going to have to deal with that, but it's been somewhat of an adjustment because when you get the ball that much, it's kind of hard to go back. But he's really fit in well here and been very productive for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it was the shot of confidence that he needed by scoring late in the Nebraska game and kind of carrying that over. And now you're starting to see that confidence take off. And now we need to see it, as I asked him, as a punt return because we know that he's super explosive in that role. And sometimes you just don't get the opportunities to return punts. But I'm anxious to see that part of his game, too, when an opponent gives him an opportunity.
He kind of smiled a little bit when you asked that question, almost as though he knows I need to get a little bit better and sharper back there. It almost looks like the way he reacted, like he's just really itching to make a play and maybe trying too hard a couple times, but we know that he can do it.
Absolutely. He's electric. I mean, he was a preseason All Big 12 punt returner by most publications, so you think it's going to pop at some point.
Yeah, I would think so. And I love the explosion on this, and rewatching the broadcast, they point out, we've talked about it so much, that isn't it amazing that you've got Jonte Wester, who was number 2 in the country in receptions last year, Will Sheppard, who was a record-breaking receiver at Vanderbilt, and those are your 3 and 4 guys. I mean, this receiver group is so insane.
It is. And, I know Will Sheppard had a couple drops in that game, but we've seen on social media some of the aggressive blocking that he had in that game. And he also made a really tough grab in that game as well. So it's a good thing to look at that group and say they can actually play quite a bit better than they have so far. Yeah. I think that's, if you're looking for the silver lining, especially after the Nebraska performance now, a week later, going into Big 12 play, that this offense can get so much better than it has been. Yeah. And, some of the drop issues in the CSU game need to get cleaned up. And I'm anxious to see if that happens Saturday against Baylor.
I'll say, too, Terrell Timmons will look good when he's got the ball, too. So they've got some really good guys. Adam and I are going to be back later on this week for a game preview to talk about Baylor.